Hi, everybody. Today is April 2nd, and I'm recording this in my office today where we did a closing, surprisingly. And I thought it was important to share with the public, with realtors, with other people in the industry, how we are doing closings, what challenges we're facing, and how to safely get through this pandemic and still serve our clients. So, I wanted to talk about procedurally how we're getting from a showing all the way to a closing and what hurdles we're coming across on the way. And some of the steps that we've taken as a state, that we're trying to take as a bar association to make sure things go smoothly for our clients. So many of you may have heard that on Tuesday, Governor Murphy modified his executive order to clarify that realtors can continue to show homes. They can do this on a one-on-one basis. No open houses are permitted, but this is deemed to be an essential service, and I think that's important. And I think it is an essential service. There are people who need to move. There are people who have to move out of their apartments, have to move for various reasons. I have clients who are in hotels that need to get out of the hotel with their family and their pets and into their new house. So let's talk about the showing. The showing obviously has to be safeguarded. It can be one-on-one. We don't need the whole family going. Maybe one person can go. I've had closings where clients of mine, maybe millennials, have bought a house virtually, never even went to the house. I'm not saying that's the best way to handle it, but we have to be creative in these times. So maybe limit the number of folks who go to look, and just, one agent be present and let the sellers take off. That's, I think, been the plan in most of these steps, is that you make the house vacant. And the people who come in have to be respectful. They should wear gloves. They could wear masks if they want, if that's requested. So the next step we get to, where there has to be some human contact typically, is the home inspection. So home inspectors, they've been respectful, and some of them are still working. They're going into homes on a one-on-one basis. Again, if the home is occupied, the occupants need to leave. And the inspector can come in with gloves and a mask, do what they need to do, write the report, and then the family can come home. If the home is vacant, even better. The next thing that normally we have to have a face-to-face contact is the appraisal. Some appraisal companies are doing drive-by appraisals, but others are still requiring entering the home. That may depend on the particular lender or the value of the house, but it still has to happen. Same thing, the seller is going to be asked to leave the home while the appraiser comes in, does what they need to do, and then they leave. So, the next thing we have to worry about, and that starts to touch on the problems we knew were going to come down the pike when this lockdown and pandemic started, is the government intervention. So in order to do a closing, we need the government to do a few things to get us through there. And we knew as a bar association that these things would come up. So we got together, and I was involved in drafting a letter, which our Board of Trustees approved and our president signed on behalf of the state bar, to ask the governor the following three things. Number one, we need smoke detector certificates or certificate of occupancies. I'll talk about that for a minute. In New Jersey, there are 565 municipalities. Each one, under the state law, is required to have a smoke detector certificate. About half of them also have what's called a certificate of occupancy. That's optional. So we asked the governor to order on a statewide basis that these certificates be waived temporarily, unless they could be done remotely, and in lieu of that they would add an affidavit of the parties. I discovered from doing this many years, there's a number of towns in North Jersey that have never required a physical inspection in order to do a smoke detector. They simply require the buyer or seller to sign a certification that they've been to the home, that there are working smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, and a fire extinguisher. And they sign that affidavit, and the towns accept that in lieu of a physical inspection. And that satisfies the state requirement. So that is the suggestion, in fact, that the DCA issued to as guidance for all the municipal officers to pivot and move to that type of a system. Nothing formally came from the governor's office, but and that is not a mandatory thing. That is the advice of the DCA. So it's not a perfect system, but a lot of towns have stepped up and they're doing the right thing. The towns that have COs are trickier because it's more than just the smoke. Some of those towns are waiving the requirements temporarily. Others are doing things like Skype and FaceTime where they have either the owner or realtor walk through and allow the inspector to see certain items within the home. So that's great. The second thing we asked the governor to do, and where the state needs to be involved, is the county clerk's offices. So we asked that they be ordered to remain open, even on a skeleton crew, so that deeds could get recorded, so mortgages could be recorded, and most importantly, so we could search the records. Now, all counties are set up for electronic recording. We've been doing this for years. And they're also set up for electronic searching. Unfortunately, Mercer County, I believe Camden County, a couple counties shut down. My practice is in Monmouth County. I do a lot of work in Ocean County. Those counties are up and running as needed so we can do closings. The next thing we were concerned about was the municipal tax offices. We need to know whether the taxes are current in order to do a closing. So we asked the governor to also mandate that they remain open, at least in electronic format, so we could retrieve that information online. Nothing has formally happened by way of an order on those points, but for the most part, the counties are open. We can get most of the tax office information, and a lot of the towns are doing what they should be doing. So we are, kind of limping through and getting by those hurdles as best we can, and we're hoping for some mandates from the state that will make life even easier. And then the final thing is the closing. And, if a client is paying cash, which is obviously the best case scenario, we can do that completely remotely. Nobody has to be present. But unfortunately, on April 2nd, we are still burdened with having those who are getting a mortgage be present to sign a mortgage and a note and the whole closing package. And that's because we do not yet have approval in the state for remote notarization. We have been working on remote notarization bills for quite some time, and there's actually an excellent bill before the governor right now that's already passed the Senate and the Assembly. The problem with the bill is that it has a 90-day effective period. So if the governor were to sign it now, it wouldn't be effective for 90 days. There's also an emergent bill before the governor, but it has some problems. It doesn't have all the procedural safeguards in there that we put in the other bill. And it also, for some odd reason, doesn't include attorneys in the remote notarization. And as many of you know, in New Jersey, attorneys can take a notarization. So the other bill is preferable, but it's got the 90-day clause. Maybe the governor will veto it. It can go back, get the 90-day clause removed, and it can get passed. But that really would be a game changer in this pandemic. It really would let us do closings completely remotely. And honestly, it'd be a huge game changer going forward doing closings, because there's plenty of times where people can't show up at closings, and we could really do all of this work on a remote virtual basis, which would be fantastic. So, there may be some good that comes out of all the trouble that we're having, in the sense that some of these legislative initiatives we've been working on for years have been pushed to the forefront. And now I think is the time when they're ultimately going to get passed and will end up helping us. So I'm going to be putting together a couple of webinars over the next few weeks to keep people updated and allow people to be able to ask questions on all the changes, because it's a very fluid situation. Things are changing day by day. So, we're doing the best we can. Like I said, there was a closing here today. I was not in the room. We had the borrower in one room. They walked in, signed, and walked out. We followed up and notarized the documents, washed our hands, sent it to the bank, and we actually accomplished a closing that way. So we're working every day. If you need anything, please give us a call, send an email. We're not all in the office every day. We're taking turns or working remotely, but the calls are all forwarded. Technology is wonderful. We can accomplish everything we need to do without all being in the office. And of course, that's going to change a lot of what many industries will do after this pandemic is over, is that we'll learn certain abilities to function remotely, which I think will save a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of pollution, all those kind of good things. So everyone stay safe and stay in touch if you need anything.